On behalf of myself and my wife Melanie, I'd like to thank you for getting this Diamond Way Ayurveda DVD on the Tibetan Chakra Stone ritual. This treatment was inspired by the work we've done over the years with a Tibetan doctor by the name of Dr. Lobsang Rapgay. What Dr. Rapgay said was it's possible to work with the negative emotions blocking the chakras, and he gave a series of exercises and breathing patterns to do in order to achieve that. According to Tibetan tradition, no one can really open your chakras for you, nor can they really balance them. What anyone can really do, other than a spiritual master who has maybe some kind of spiritual power or shaktipat that they can confer on you for a moment to give you a glimpse of what the opening of the chakras is like. Mainly what happens is you have to do your own spiritual work. And primarily, what you need to focus on is overcoming the negative emotional patterns that block the different chakras. If you do that, if you begin to work on those negative emotional patterns and begin to access your own inherent wisdom, then what will happen is those chakras will naturally open of their own accord. How do we accomplish working with the opening up of and the transformation of these chakras so that they give us the spiritual energy and insight that is within us? Well, actually what it is that we have to work on 5 primary negative emotions. And these are associated with the 5 chakras from the third eye area down to the sacral area. In the Tibetan tradition, there are more chakras than that. Traditionally, there's said to be 7 chakras. And what the chakras basically are a gathering of energy in the marma grid of Ayurveda. Very, very high concentrations of subtle body energy. And the crown and the root chakra are considered to be portals of entrance or exit, and don't necessarily have negative emotions associated with them. Most of Tibetan Tantra and all the healing rituals that focus on working with the chakras therefore focus on the points from the third eye down to the sacral area. What we're focusing on in that situation is overcoming the patterns around jealousy. When we work on jealousy, when we try and transform jealousy, what happens is we access what's called all-accomplishing wisdom, kind of our own power. We feel our sense of grounding. We feel confident about who we are. And all the issues that are associated with that sacral chakra are just transformed because so much of the guilt or the not feeling right to be has more to do with jealousy than anything else. In terms of the navel chakra, which is at the physical solar plexus, what we're looking at is competitiveness and greed. Those are the things that block that chakra. As we begin to look at those patterns in ourselves, what happens is that we begin to access more of like a community sense, a sense of equanimity, where we're not higher than or lower than anybody else. We learn to share more. There's a sense of equanimity, and it's accessing what's called equanimous wisdom. If we look at the area of the heart, what's said about the area of the heart is it's all about love. Well, it is. But what actually blocks love is hatred and anger. Now, strangely enough, it's not about just deciding to love. What it's about is accessing a certain kind of wisdom in that chakra, which is called mirror-like wisdom, where suddenly we realize is what we project is who we are. And therefore, once we begin to understand that, what happens is we start developing an empathy and an openness to others. If we focus on the throat area has to do with desire or passion, or the idea that what I want is more important than what everybody else has. Well, once you begin to understand that and access the energy of this area, you realize that what actually you need to do in terms of overcoming that is access what's called discriminating wisdom. Discriminating wisdom gives you the ability to understand what's appropriate, what's not. Because what you begin to realize is if you take too much and someone else ends up with less, more than likely that imbalance is going to come back at you at some point. So there's a kind of discriminating awareness that creates a very, very clear kind of intelligence, which actually is also the basis of compassion. Finally, what we have is the area of the third eye. That which blocks the third eye is pride. We have ideas, we have our thinking about what we think the world is about, and it's usually very small. In this situation, what we're doing is we are trying to overcome pride. And as we overcome pride, we access something called all-pervasive wisdom. We get a much more global sense of how things are connected. In terms of this particular treatment, how do we do this? Well, we have certain tools that we use. And the tools that we use are touch, semi-precious stones, the colors of those semi-precious stones, and sound and oils. Those are the things we're working with. This particular treatment is made up of several different types of treatments from the Tibetan tradition. One of them that we have is called the Tibetan Common Stress Sequence that was taught to me by Dr. Rapgay. And in this, he taught when you're working with marmas, there are two positions that your hands work with. One is using your thumb, and the other is where you take your index finger, your ring finger, and your middle finger, and you place them together. So you press points with the thumb or with these three fingers. That's what you're going to be doing. With respect to the contact, Dr. Rapgay encouraged his students to work primarily in a clockwise direction, regardless of whether you're working on the right side or left side of the body. And when you're working on these points, primarily clockwise to have a more pacifying, peaceful effect. Beyond touch, we'll be using various products. Oils, a vata, a pitta, and a kapha oil, each of which has its own base oil and essential oils to work with the doshic energy that is influencing each one of the marmas and the chakra points. Then, this lapis egg. This lapis egg will be used to massage each one of the chakra points separately. Before we put on the stones, we'll be doing some dowsing with this pendulum, a quartz crystal pendulum, looking at the counterclockwise and clockwise movement of each one of the chakras. And finally, the chakra stones themselves. Howlite for the third eye area, red jasper for the throat, lapis for the heart, yellow jasper for the navel chakra, and malachite for the sacral chakra. These stones are very different from how many of you may have studied about chakras, because most of the literature talks about the stones that are used to amplify the positive qualities of the chakras. Here, what we're doing is we are focusing on all the negative aspects that block the chakras and using the color of the stones and the power of the stones to transform them. What this Tibetan chakra treatment does is to help you to overcome negative emotional patterns. As you do that, you suddenly find that there's so much more energy, so much more clarity, so much more calmness to address those things in your life that oftentimes you felt insurmountable. It is our hope that in the study of this treatment, that you get as much benefit out of offering it as your clients do in receiving it. That is our goal in almost every one of our Diamond Way Ayurveda treatments. We like to see our therapists and the people that learn our methods feel inspired by what they do. And we're very happy when we hear of clients that can go home, go back out into their world, and be more effective, more compassionate, more focused, more inspired. Thank you for your time and your interest in Tibetan Chakra Stone ritual. We start by assessing the vikruti, or the condition of the client. Here the client is sitting up, they tilt their head down. I trace my hand until I find the most prominent bone and have them look forward. Then I'm going to have them turn their head from side to side to find out if that bone underneath my finger or my thumb is moving. If it is, that's C7. If it stays stationary underneath my thumb, the spinous process, then I know I'm on T1, in which case I need to find C7, and I move up to that C7 point, which is exactly what I've done. Here I'm assessing with firm pressure these 3 points. C7 relates to Vata, T1 relates to Pitta, and the spinous process of T2 relates to Kapha. So again, I'm going to go down them, and I'm going to assess which one of these is most sensitive for the client. Sometimes it can be 1, sometimes it can be 2, sometimes it is all 3. Now, if it's all 3, then what's going to happen is you treat Vata. If none of the 3 are sensitive, you would also treat Vata. If 2 of them are sensitive, I'm going to have the person on their back and then do an assessment on their belly. To do that, I have them draw their knees up. That way I can really get into and press down into the abdomen and get a firm and clear assessment of what the condition is of the points. Just below the xiphoid process, about 1/4 of an inch, is the point for Kapha. So I have the person breathe in. As they breathe out, I will press in, and they report to me the sensitivity of that area. I'm then going to have me breathe in, and as I breathe out and they breathe out, I'm going to press in on this point, which is at the solar plexus, which is for Pitta. So I want to find out which one of these is most sensitive, the one in the middle or the one above. For the sake of argument and for demonstration, I'm showing the point that's just above the navel. This is the Vata point. So you have on the belly the same as you have on the back, except in reverse, in that the top point is Kapha, the middle point is still Pitta, the bottom point here is Vata. Again, this is the Pitta point. And then above that, just below the xiphoid process, is the Kapha point. Once I've known which one of these is most sensitive, what it's going to do is help me to determine the type of oil I'm going to be using, as well as the type of touch. The usefulness of this is that once I understand this, I know how to treat the client very generally for today. This can be used for Abhyanga, it can be used for Shirodhara. In this particular case, what it's going to be used for is for the common stress sequence and the application of the most appropriate oil for the marma points that I'm going to be touching. We now go on to the assessment of the chakras themselves. And here we're wanting to have the client report how each one of these chakra areas feels. If it feels sharp, it'll be more Pitta. If it is dull, it will be more Kapha. And if it's kind of erratic, that means it's more Vata, like they're not too sure exactly how it feels. So again, the knees are drawn up. I press in as they breathe out, and they report to me whether it's sharp, whether it's dull, or whether they're not too sure, or it just kind of feels kind of erratic. So that is the sacral chakra. The navel chakra which is in the physical solar plexus. The heart chakra, again, they breathe out and I press in kind of firmly so they can tell me what the sensitivity is. The throat chakra, which again, you don't press too heavily, but the person can report whether it's uncomfortable, whether it's dull, or whether it's erratic. And the same thing in terms of the middle of the forehead or the third eye area. They can tell you whether it feels dull, whether it feels sharp, or if it's kind of erratic in its feeling. Then what I will do is I will write down this information on a sheet of paper, because that's going to determine what kind of oil I'm going to be using, as well as how I'm going to be applying the lapis egg for the massage of the chakras later on. We're now going to focus on the Yantra yoga exercise. What's going to be happening is the client's going to be breathing in, and as they breathe in, they're going to breathe their arms over their head and spread their legs. Then what the therapist does is rub vigorously down the body, very quickly. You have the client breathe out, bring their arms back down to their sides, and bring their legs together very quickly. And they're going to do this 3 times. This is a modified exercise from the tradition of Yantra Yoga as taught by Dr. Lobsang Rapgay. Again, person breathes in, rub, 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 all the way down. They breathe out, their legs come together, their arms come down as they breathe out vigorously. And again, the idea here is to create strong stimulation to the body. In Yantra Yoga, you actually do this to yourself very strongly with the same kind of breathing. We're taking this approach and applying it to another person, which creates a great amount of stimulation and energy, which you then move through the sequences that follow. Again, we're rubbing, rubbing, rubbing very vigorously. The person breathes out. And then they rest for a few moments. Then what we're going to do is just cover them up, because all we're going to want right now at this point is for their head to be exposed so we can do some of the marma points at the beginning of the Tibetan common stress marma sequence. We're now going to focus on the Tibetan common stress marma sequence. We start with turning the head to the left with the left hand cradled around the left ear, the right fingers digitally kneading along the scalp. The digital kneading is done with clockwise circular motions. Then we do the same on the left side. The right hand is cradled around the right ear, and I'm digitally kneading the scalp on the left side. Again, notice that I'm doing this in clockwise motions. In some traditions, what you would do is you do clockwise on one side and counterclockwise on the other. Whereas in the Tibetan tradition, it is sometimes encouraged to go clockwise on both sides of the body. This clockwise motion has the most calming effect, which is useful for this particular chakra treatment. It is also good, by the way, for a general stress sequence by itself. After I've digitally kneaded 3 times on each side, I'm going to be doing some light hacking to potment over the entire skull. It's very, very light, and all I'm doing is creating a lot of stimulation and attraction of circulation up to the entire top of the head, because there are going to be marma points or subtle energy points that I'm going to be working on. I do more stimulation by going down, grabbing the roots of the hair and just vibrating slightly to bring stimulation up into the scalp. Having done an assessment earlier, I determined that the client needed a more kapha oil And then with that oil, we're going to massage the crown point called Murdni or Adipati marma. Then move on to the temples. We're doing 7 clockwise rotations to all of these marma points. We breathe in and we come away. Then in the hollow behind the mastoid process. I'm then doing the anterior fontanelle point. And then the posterior fontanelle point, which is usually where the head meets the table. In the literature that's provided with the DVD, there's information about the Sanskrit names for all of these points. It is also indicated below as we stimulate each point at the bottom of your screen. So we've done the crown point, followed by the temple points, the points behind the mastoid on the right and left sides, the anterior fontanelle point. Again, 7 rotations in a clockwise direction for all of these points. Finally going through for the 3rd time, the crown point, then the temple points. The temple point is also called Shankar marma. These points are very good in helping you to connect with the subconscious of your client. So here, after we've stimulated both sides, and on the 3rd time through, we're just going to hold for a few moments. You want to convey a positive thought, whether it's a prayer, a visualization, or a mantra, to your client, and encourage them to relax very deeply. You don't necessarily say that, it's just what you have as you're thinking it in your mind. Breathing in, coming away, going to the points behind the ears again, the hollows behind the mastoid process, the anterior fontanelle point, and the posterior fontanelle point, and then I'm going to hold. I'm going to cradle my hands on the occipital protuberances either side of the head and just hold. These are the Krikatika marmas, and what I'm going to do is hold both sides and wait for a sense of balance. It could be a sense of pressure, temperature, pulse. But what I do is I hold these points until I feel that balance, then I'm going to breathe in and come away. To easily find the crown point, imagine the midline of the body coming to the top of the head, intersecting with another line going over the top of the head from the apex of the ears. Looking from the side, you can see that I'm using my 3 fingers, index, middle, and ring finger together to stimulate the marmas at the temples. Now I'm behind the ears in the hollow behind the mastoid process. Again, clockwise circular motions to both sides. We find the anterior fontanelle point by going 3 finger widths in front of the crown point, and the posterior fontanelle point is found at about 4 finger widths behind that same crown point. Again, where the head usually makes contact with the table. We're now going to begin the Tibetan chucking style massage. We start with the head, vigorously rubbing on the top of the head, the arms, the back, the buttocks, down the right buttock first and the right leg, and the left buttock and left leg. We go to it a second time. This was taught in a retreat by the Venerable Kala Rinpoche many, many years ago. The idea was to create a good deal of stimulation for the body, for meditation purposes, to get the body energy up again. It's also good for doing yoga and good in this particular chakra sequence. Last time through, vigorously rubbing down on the body, lots of stimulation. Down the right buttock and leg, left buttock and leg. And then after those 3 times, we're going to apply a firm pressure down on the entire surface of the back of the body. Very, very slowly, full palmar pressure down onto the palms of the hands, down the back, dragging the hands very firmly down the buttocks, down the back of the legs, all the way to the bottom of the feet. With this stimulation complete, we now go to the marma points on the back of the body for the common stress marma sequence. We start with C7, which is the point for vata. We do 7 rotations at a minimum on the spinous process of C7, and then with our thumbs to the right and to the left, about 3/4 of an inch away from the spinous process of C7. We then palpate down to the 5th thoracic vertebrae, which is mid-scapular. And here we do T5 on the spinous process with our 3 fingers, our thumb to the right 3/4 of an inch, and to the left. This is for the subtle energy of vata, known as prana. So this is a prana point. Then we come down to T6, which corresponds to the area for the heart. 7 rotations right on the spinous process, and then to the right, about 3/4 of an inch, and to the left, about 3/4 of an inch. Then we find lumbar 3. Lumbar 3, if you follow the curves on over the hips towards the spine and come up to lumbar 3. Spinous process of lumbar 3, which is for the colon, and you go to the right, about 3/4 of an inch away from the center of the spine, and to the left, same thing. Go back up and repeat. C7 to the right and to the left. T5, right on the spinous process, minimum of 7 times. And then to the right. And to the left. Going down to T6. Thoracic 6, right on the spine, to the right, and to the left. Again, the reminder is, in Tibetan marma treatments, you use your thumbs or your index, middle, and ring fingers connected to each other, as you'll see I'm going to be doing on lumbar 3. Right on the spinous process of lumbar 3, my thumb goes into the side, 3/4 of an inch away on the right side, and then on the left side. This is done a total of 3 times. After doing the marmas like this, we're going to do meridian stroking. down the acupuncture meridians. Here we're just stroking down, very loose hands, very lightly brushing the body from the shoulders down to the hips. And then we come down from the hips down to the heels, all the way down. Something like 11, 13, 15 times. Just stroking like this. Once this is complete, then we're going to turn our client back over. Our client is back over on their back. We've wrapped them up a little bit. We do the points for the marma sequence. Starting with the point right in the center of the sternum, which is called hridayam, or the heart point. We then go to a point in the sternal notch called jatru. For those points, we did 7 rotations. We then go to do the points in between the fingers, in the webs. 7 rotations in between each one of the fingers, right in the webs. There's no particular name for these marmas that are found between the fingers. Breathe in and come away, and we'll repeat the same on the left side. Again, into the webs, 7 rotations at a minimum. We've used a little bit of our kapha oil. We breathe in and come away, let the hand rest, and then we're going to go down to the feet. Again, some oil. We start first with the right foot and do in between each one of the toes into the web area between the toes. First between the big toe and second toe, and then down, finally between the 4th and 5th toe. We do the right foot first. Breathe in, come away. A little bit more oil for the marma points. And then go into the webs on the left foot. Same way. Finishing up with the point between the 4th and 5th toes. We always breathe in and come away. As you breathe out, you go into a point. As you breathe in, you come away. Then we're going to do a point right in the center of each foot. This is called tal hridayam. It's like the heart of the appendage. We do 7 rotations into the heart of the right foot, then 7 rotations onto the left foot. We're then going to go back up, and we do this basically 3 times. Here we are on the 3rd time. We start with the point right in the center of the sternum, and then the sternal notch. Notice that my hands are curled up, so my hands aren't resting on the chest area. So now we're working on the area of the webs in between the fingers. Again, this is the 3rd time through, minimum of 7 rotations. And after we finish doing this, we're going to hold the hand with our left hand, and with our right hand, we're going to do this light meridian stroking. We're going down the back of the arm to the shoulder, and the shoulder to the palm. Notice how I lightly turn the arm to make it so that the client stays comfortable and the motion is nice and fluid. And we do that an odd number of times, maybe 7, 11, 13, 15, up to 21 times maximum. I then go into the point which is in the hollow of the armpit. It's called Kaksha marma. It's the deepest marma of the body. My hand is resting on the shoulder. My thumb is in the crease of the armpit. I breathe in, take the pressure off the point in the middle of the armpit. As I breathe out, I drop my thumb down and do 7 rotations deep into that armpit point. Again, the client breathes in. As they breathe out, I drop my thumb down into the hollow of their armpit and press deeply. After doing that 3 times, I will do the same on the left side. Here, I'm doing the points in the webs as I did on the right hand. Then I will go to the meridian stroking. Here, I hold the left hand with my right hand and do the stroking with my left hand, up the back of the arm, down the front, back and forth like this, 7, 11, up to 21 times. Then I'm going to take my hand rested on the top of the shoulder. My thumb drops into the armpit. As she breathes out, I drop my thumb down into the armpit and do 7 rotations deep into the armpit. She breathes in, I lift off the pressure. Breathe out, I go back down into the marma. I will now rest the left hand and go down to the feet to do the marmas on the feet for the last time. Starting in the webs between the big toe and second toe of the right foot. I will do the same on the left side as before. And then I'm going to do meridian stroking. Here, I will go up the inside of the right leg and down the outside, up the inside, down the outside, up and down. Again, an odd number of times. I will do the same on the other side. Up the inside, down the outside, up the inside, down the outside. Same thing. Basically going with how the energy flows in the body. There are many different kinds of flows. These are some of the most basic with respect to subtle energy in the body. I will then go to the points in the very bottoms of the feet. Talhridayam on the right foot, very light pressure, 7 rotations at a minimum. Same thing on the left side. After doing that, I'm going to look for a point on both inside aspects of the heels. From the medial malleolus to the edge of the heel, I draw a line, then I bisect that line with my thumbs, and I just hold. There's no pressure here. All we're doing is just holding. And I'm waiting for a sense of balance. That sense of balance could be temperature, pulse, pressure. With that sense of balance, I will then cover up the feet and move to the head. With the eyes closed, I'm going to place my 3 fingers, my index, middle, and ring fingers, right on the eyelids over the eyeballs. I have the person breathe in, and as they breathe out, I'm having them relax as I put pressure, a slight pressure on their eyeballs. They breathe in, I lift up. As they breathe out, I press down. And I do this 5 times. Clockwise rotational pressure. If someone has contacts on, you would have them remove their contacts before you do this. If they have to keep their contacts in, you can just cup over their eyes and have them just breathe in and breathe out and allow their eyes to feel like they're sinking down into the sockets. After doing either one of those techniques, the pressure directly on the eyeballs or the cupping over the eyes, I'm now doing light meridian stroking and then placing my fingers at the base of the occiput on those Krikatika marmas, holding and getting a sense of balance with respect to weight, temperature, pulse, or pressure. And then I'll breathe in and come away. We are now going to begin the lapis stone chakra massage. You want to have it so that the chakra areas are exposed because you're going to be putting oil on them. And you're going to put the oil on that's appropriate for each chakra based on the assessment you did in the beginning. Here what we're doing is we're applying vata oil to the sacral chakra because the energy in this area was reported by the client to be erratic, sometimes sharp, sometimes not. It was changeable. And so using the vata oil and the pointier side to the egg, we're doing deep, slow circles to the sacral chakra area. And again, as we mentioned, lapis is excellent for all the chakras. It's a good general healing stone for each one. In the navel chakra, which was found to be sharper in its reactions, we apply the pitta oil and use the wider side of the stone. The navel chakra is in the area of the physical solar plexus. It is the point, by the way, that we used earlier when we were assessing the Vikruti. So it's right around the pitta area in general, and this area was sensitive. If the client has like a tank top on, you can ask them to pull it down a little bit, or a sports bra. You can apply the oil to the area because you definitely want to use the stone on the skin. So here we're doing clockwise circles in the appropriate way, using the oil that was recommended based on the assessment and the side of the stone that was recommended based on the assessment. the area of the throat chakra was a bit erratic. So there was the need for the vata oil, the more pointier side to the stone. And again, because you're on the throat and it's a bonier area, you don't press very deeply. You just go over the surface of the skin, and the stone will have its effect on the chakra area as needed. Clockwise circles, and then you spin out. And the client reported that the area around the third eye or the middle of the forehead was feeling a bit sharp. So we're using some pitta oil, and we will use the wider side of the lapis egg. Do a number of clockwise circles, gradually making it so that the spinning over the area becomes slower and slower until eventually we will spin off of that point and go on to the next part of the chakra stone ritual. Phase 6 involves subtle channel breathing. We're working on the negative emotions that block the chakras and influence the body negatively. We imagine that there's a red energy tube, the thickness of a little finger, running up along the side of the right nostril, underneath the skull, along the right side of the spine, finishing underneath the navel. And then on the left side, a white energy tube, the thickness of a little finger, going up along underneath the skull, along the side of the body, finishing down below the navel in the same way. That left side has to do with irritation and anger. The middle channel runs anterior to the spine, comes up to the crown of the head and hooks in towards the brain, and relates to confusion. To begin with, we have it so that the left white tube is inserted into the bottom of the red tube below the navel. This is how we're visualizing. And then what we're going to be doing is working with alternate nostril breathing. We're going to first focus on purifying the energy on the right side, which is associated with attachment, holding on to things. And we're going to imagine that as the person breathes out through the right nostril, that it's almost like soot and smoke associated with attachment is what's coming out. So with our index finger, we block the right nostril. The person breathes in pure, fresh air through the left side, all the way down into the belly. And then we block the left nostril, and as they breathe out, they're letting go of attachments. Again, breathing in pure, fresh air. Breathing out the smoke and soot of attachment. And we do this 3 times. After this is done 3 times, we allow the person to rest, to have 3 breaths where they imagine that that red side is now like a transparent, radiant ruby. We're now going to imagine that the red tube below the navel is inserted into the bottom of the white left tube. And we're going to be focusing on cleaning out irritation, anger, and hatred. That's what's going to be pushed up out of that left nostril in the form of smoke and soot. So we block that left nostril. The person breathes in pure, fresh air down to the navel. We block the right nostril, breathe out, and the person pushes out the smoke and soot of irritation and anger. Again, breathing in pure fresh air into the right side, blocking the right, breathing out through the left, irritation, anger, hostility, etc. One more time. Afterwards, breathing in and out 3 times. They want to feel like that left channel is like a radiant diamond. Next, they're going to be focusing on the central blue channel. And here they want to imagine that both ends of these side channels are inserted into the bottom of the blue channel. We place their hands so that their thumbs are above the navel and their palms are below the navel. And they're going to be breathing in through both nostrils. Breathing in pure fresh air through both nostrils down below the navel. And as they breathe out, the smoke and soot of confusion, it goes up towards the crown of the head and then just comes out of the area of the third eye. Smoke and soot's just pouring out of that third eye area. Smoke and soot of confusion, of ignorance, of clouded thinking. Pure fresh air comes in, confusion leaves. Just again as a reminder of how it's done, pure fresh air going up. And then what we're going to do is hold our right hand on the area below the belly over their hands, and their left hand rests on their forehead. And we imagine that that blue energy tube becomes like a radiant crystalline lapis lazuli tube of light. Just radiant light dancing up and down throughout that tube. Remove the hand from around the sacral area. Breathe in and take the hand away from the forehead. We now perform the chakra stone treatment using the stones and the use of sound. We first start with the third eye or Ajna chakra. And each chakra has a negative emotion that blocks its opening. And this is what we're focusing on. So here in the third eye area, we're focusing on the negative emotions associated with pride, the way in which we think our thinking is the most important. And we don't get to see things in an all-pervasive way. That is the wisdom that we can access when we fully work with and open up the energy of this chakra, is all-pervasive wisdom. Here what we're doing is we're just working with the negative emotional state. We douse until the pendulum comes to a stillness or just goes back and forth. It'll usually have a clockwise or counterclockwise motion. When it comes to that stillness or back and forth motion, we place the stone, here a howlite, over the third eye area. The mantra that's associated with this stone in this region is the sound Om. Om. And the Buddha aspect, or the wisdom aspects that's associated with this area, is the Buddha Vairochana, and the mantra is Vairochana Om. Vairochana Om. And you can use either the sound Om or that mantra Vairochana Om over this area. We then go to the heart chakra, which is associated with love, but what blocks us from experiencing love is anger and hatred. To access the love, what we need to do is awaken to what's called mirror-like wisdom. What we see before us is a reflection of who we are, is a reflection of ourselves. So we need mirror wisdom, which opens us up to a much deeper sense of love. And the stone that's associated with this area is lapis lazuli. And the sound associated with this area is hung. Hung. The wisdom Buddha associated with this area is akshobhya. And the mantra for this area, if you wish to use it, is Vajrasattva Hung. Vajrasattva Hung. We then move to the navel chakra in the area of the physical solar plexus. This is associated with a tendency that we have in terms of a negative emotion of competitiveness, where we think we're better than some and we think we're lesser than others. Here what we're wanting to access is equanimitous wisdom, the wisdom of equanimity, that sense of community. That is the wisdom that we want to experience. So we let the pendulum come to a stillness and we place a stone that's appropriate. Here it's either yellow jade or yellow jasper. And the sound associated with this area is the sound trum. Trum. And if you wish to use the mantra of the wisdom Buddha, that mantra is Ratna Sambhava Trum. Ratna Sambhava Trum. We now focus on the throat chakra. And what blocks this chakra and its expressiveness is the difficulties we have sometimes with being truthful. So here what we're doing is we're working on dowsing the area to help make the chakra area more receptive. And then we're going to place on the area a red jasper. And the sound associated, the seed mantra associated with this area and the stone is Hri. Hri. And the wisdom Buddha associated with this area is Amitabha. And the mantra is Amitabha Hri or Amideva Hri. This mantra and this area help us to access discriminating wisdom so that we understand what is of value and how to discern what is of value in our lives. We now come down to the sacral chakra, which is associated with guilt and the right to be who we are. What actually blocks us from accessing those feelings, overcoming guilt and the right to be, has to do with jealousy. That's what blocks this particular chakra, is jealousy. Therefore, what we're doing is we're working on overcoming that jealousy so that we can feel the power of our being, all-accomplishing wisdom, which has to do with the wisdom of accomplishment. The Buddha aspect that is associated with this area is Amagosiddhi. The stone that we use on this area is a malachite. Very strong stone. Helps to work with jealousy. And the mantra associated with this stone in this area is Ah. Ah. And the mantra of the Wisdom Buddha is Karmavajra, ah. Karmavajra, ah. With all the stones on like this, we then cover the person up and begin to work with the visualization for all the chakra areas.
Allow your whole body to settle onto the surface you are resting upon. Allow your tongue to rest just behind your top front teeth and your eyes to close. Imagine that you are gazing at a distant horizon where a pale blue sky meets a deep blue, calm ocean. As you gaze at the horizon, a bright ball of white light rises up from the water and hovers in the pale blue sky. Beams of white light radiate towards you and enter into the middle of your forehead, your third eye, or Ajna chakra. As this white light radiates out and pours into this chakra, you hear the sound of the seed mantra, Om. The light and the sound fill your entire head and stimulate your brain, awakening your whole body. You feel the awakening of the unlimited potential of your being as you hear the sound Om. Om. Now see the white ball moving higher up into the sky, and directly below it, rising from the deep blue ocean, there appears a brilliant deep red glowing ball. Beams of red light radiate towards you and enter into your throat, into the throat chakra, the wheel of enjoyment. As this red light radiates out and pours into this chakra, you hear the sound of the seed mantra, Ah. The light and the sound fill your entire throat, chest, and arms, awakening the power of your voice and your expressive potential as you hear the sound The white ball and the red ball move higher up into the sky, and from directly below them, rising from the deep blue ocean, there appears a deep blue glowing ball. Beams of blue light radiate towards you and enter into your heart, into the heart chakra, the wheel of Dharma, the truth, the way things are. As this blue light radiates out and pours into this chakra, you hear the sound of the seed mantra, Hum. The light and the sound fill your entire heart, connecting you with your true nature, the deep wisdom of the mind from which your highest aspirations and basic goodness arise. You hear the seed sound of your mind's true nature. Hum. Hum. Now this vertical row of all three balls of light radiate beams to you all at once. White beams into your third eye chakra, red beams into your throat chakra, and blue beams into your heart chakra. As you breathe in, hear the sound Om resonating through your brain and body as the white light beams enter you. Pausing before you breathe out, hear the sound Ah in the pause, and with that sound, beams of red light awakening your throat and expressiveness. Then as you breathe out, you hear the sound Hum vibrating deep in your heart, and you feel the illusion of separation from your true nature dissolving. Allow these three sounds, Om, Ah, and Hum, come and pass with the rising, pausing, and letting go of each breath. In your mind's eye, see the white ball coming towards you from the horizon and entering the crown of your head, dissolving in the middle of your forehead. The red ball then comes towards you, enters the crown of your head, descends down to and dissolves at the level of your throat. The blue ball now comes towards you, enters through the crown of your head, and descends down to and dissolves in your heart center. Breathe in, focus on the navel chakra, the wheel of emanation, the region of your physical solar plexus. As you breathe in, use your inner voice to say to yourself the sound so. Then, as you breathe out, focus on your sacral chakra, just below your navel, the center of your physical body. And imagine that you are saying to yourself, ha. Breathe in, so. And breathe out, ha. Imagine that you are totally identified with the qualities and activity of your enlightened potential. At this time, keep gently focused on your breathing and allow all sights and sounds to be natural. Place your thumbs at the base of your fourth fingers, then gently make loose fists. This is the Bodhisattva mudra. As you rest here and relax, feel that whatever sense of peace, calm, bliss, insight, or whatever positive qualities you have felt arise, expand around you. Imagine that you are sharing all of this goodness as you breathe in and breathe out. Feel this goodness radiate out to friends, loved ones, strangers you pass by every day, even the people you have difficulties with. Allow your good feelings to touch each and every being. Let these feelings expand to beings not only in places and sites that you know, but beyond. Imagine that this good feeling has no limit. See this goodness expanding further and further into space, for all to share.
It's good to clean your stones after each treatment. If you can get them outside like this, it's great to do this at least once a month. But definitely between each treatment, clean the stones. What we're doing now is we're taking purified water and filling the 5 small bowls with purified water and the large bowl with a good amount of water, because eventually you'll put all the stones into that bowl. Into the smaller bowls, you will take Himalayan pink salt or a good quality sea salt of any kind, and take a good pinch and place it into the 5 smaller bowls. This will give the crystalline energy and cleaning power of the salt for each one of your stones. Now what you'll do is you'll place the lapis in one bowl, the malachite, the howlite, the red jasper, and the yellow jasper or jade. You'll usually have to top up the bowl with the lapis egg in it, because the lapis egg has to be fully covered. And you want your stones to soak like this for about 10 minutes. Afterwards, place them in the plain water. That way you'll do a final rinse of the stones. Get any residues of salt off of them. Swish them around a little bit. And then after about 5 minutes, you'll remove the stones and put them in the sunlight. Of course, if you're working in a treatment room, you might not be able to get them out into the sunlight. For sure, what you want to do is soak them in the salt water, rinse them off, and pat them dry before you go to your next client.
One week ago, I experienced the Tibetan Chakra Stone ritual and had a magnificently positive experience. Physically, the experience was both engaging and relaxing. As body work tends to be, I really surrendered to the conscious touch of having somebody working on my body. Surrendered to the wonderful experience it is to be touched in a healing way. What made this different was the mental engagement required, the meditation, the conscious ability to choose healing in the process. So, it's a meditation and a surrender into healing. I found that to be really appealing to me. I appreciate that form of ritual. And the results, wow. My week has been really, really powerful since the ritual experience. Within the first 2 days immediately after, I experienced a real upwelling of energy that felt like it was sourcing from Somewhere sweet inside of me. I was awake with the dawn. I found my prayer to be stronger, my meditation to be deeper. I found more energy sourcing through my body. And in conversation afterwards, it was affirmed that this type of upwelling of energy is what can be expected. And yeah, I feel a sense of strength inside, a sense of alignment, and a sense of ability to deal with difficulty. And life has proven in the last week to provide a transition. So I've gone through a significant transition within the last week, and I feel an amazing sense of peace and ease and strength inside, and ability to deal with what's happening in my life. And I do attribute that very much so in part to the ritual and through the alignment and recentering and strengthening that it provided for me. I think that somebody needs to know how to do this in every community. And that would be a beautiful gift. Yeah.